Okay, so in this particular one, we're looking at pound CAD at on the 240 charts, which is the 4-hour charts here. Now, let's take a look at this as before the uptrend begins. Here was a downtrend coming in, and as the downtrend starts to die out, okay, coming down, no lower low, and then finally a higher high sequence starts kicking in. Now, as the higher high sequence kicking in, look at the retracement on this first higher high. Notice it does not stop at SNR. Okay, he goes deeper. So it starts off looking like a channel, but then eventually once he goes higher and he breaches and makes new highs, it uses that high point as your support equals resistance. And that's when you know a trend is strong and there's activity. Okay, because trends are pretty good. And trends pretty much give you decent trades and decent wins. Okay, so when you identify trend moments, you want to keep an eye out that you want to make sure it is a trend. You want to make sure of your momentum capabilities are at utmost mastery. You want to be on top of your buyers and sellers needs to be at utmost mastery so you can be able to ride trends. Okay, because trends, like I said, they are like the big payouts. Okay, so in this particular case, let's go through this as the buyers begin their initial move. Okay, let me delete this and we'll start with as they take their descent off, we go higher, chop, breach. As it breaches, it goes higher, pulls back higher, no higher high. Notice if I put my line right there, no higher high. So the guy who did the breach is just here. Okay, it's still here. And the guy who's responsible for all that is here. Okay, I can just imagine you guys, a few weeks from now, you're like, all you're thinking is, where's the breach and who's responsible? It's just constantly, who's responsible for this mess? All right, so anyway, so there's the guy who's responsible and there's that breach, right? So we're like, okay, this is all buyer's territory. It doesn't matter how deep it comes in, it is all in buyer's zone. So when we look at this in buyer's zone, we're also watching the momentum fade. Okay, sellers come in. We're going to use a dotted line for this. Sellers come in, halt. Breach happens. We're going to use this line for the breach. And after the breach happens, it holds here, tries to make a lower low, no lower low, comes back up, tries to make another push. This time, not even a equal lower low, and it rolls over to the other side of this. If I drag this across, okay, now it challenges that high who's responsible, and he's right up there and he's holding until one candle pops out. Okay, that's your first initial sign of it's go time. Okay, your first initial sign of it's go time because the long is resuming. The buy kicks in, the long resumes. You're looking at this long as, okay, buyers, mini halt, stronger buyer, mini halt, even stronger buyer, medium halt, and then from there, is there a higher high? Let's try to draw this across. Is that really a high? It was when it came out, but then it came back in. Is this a higher high? Well, it was when it started to come out, but then it never came back in there. So it's like, is my line right there? Is that the containment part? Let's take a look at it carefully. If that is going to be my containment part, it is the first breach that came from here. Okay, if I do my first breach that contained from here, here's the first breach that goes north, pops down, and then he never makes a higher high since then. So we're gonna precise this, drag this across, and we're gonna say that, okay, well, that looks like the case there. Now, if that's the line right there, how is it possible the market came all the way down to this low, used the support resistance, and kept going? How come this breaching area and the guy who's responsible doesn't make any sense? Let's do it again. Let's start from the buyers from where they began. Buyers pulls back. Buyers, not really a higher high, but it holds and it breaches. Line goes there. Buyers pull back, breach, line goes there. Now that it's breached, it reached this high point, and then since that high point, Okay, everything else, we're just going to put a line from that high point and take it across. And say, did we ever make higher highs? So we had the first attempt to make a higher high to this spot, and we had no higher high. We had the next attempt to make a higher high at this spot, no higher high, but it didn't come back down as much. So there's the tricky part. Third attempt to make a higher high, didn't come down. How are we going to know if this line needs to stay here or not? Okay, here's the thing. If this is the breach and the breach doesn't move higher, you need to put this together with the momentum. Look at how the momentum goes up, slows down a bit, goes very strong, slows down harder, weakly goes up very slowly, barely makes a higher high, rests 50-60%, drags its way up again, no higher high whatsoever, rests 50% again, one shot, one last push, no higher high, and collapses to 120% fail. This momentum sign shows you that from this moment onwards, no highs actually happened. It just dragged into this little, from an uptrend, a mini uptrend, to a mini channel, to a mini range, to a mini death. Okay, and the overall flow says, once we breached this high, our line was here, where our dotted line is as well, and that all ends up being the buyer's territory. Okay, now into this buyer's territory, you fade out the sellers, and as you fade out the sellers, your buy resumes. Okay, so in this case, sellers, slight pullback, bigger seller. It starts to get some momentum here, starts to get some slowdown here. We're gonna put our mini line here because we're now stalking sellers. Now as the sellers come down from there, sellers come down from there, they make this low, but no lower low after that. This is all sellers territory until they come up to here where they challenge that high and they pop out with one more candle. This becomes your buy zone. Okay, and then when that buy activates, you have that nice big winner, because there's more information of why this becomes a bigger winner compared to anything else, because there's something more to the left. This will come into later courses on how to find out how you can trade on your time frame, but you can milk a bigger time frame. So we'll go into all of that details and stuff. That's a little bit more advanced. We'll get there later. We're just scratching the surface of clearing out the fundamentals in the air to make sure the core concepts are solid. Okay, so moving on to some examples.